Today we discuss the last of our series for International Women's Month on the 3 primary industries driven by women in Sri Lanka. We have discussed women in apparel, women in tea, and today, women and migrant work. Before the pandemic, Sri Lanka's migrant workers contributed over $7 billion into the country's economy. They have been a vibrant part of our economy, with the majority of these migrant workers being female. Female migrant workers, especially in the low-skill segment, face a dual challenge as they lie at the intersection of two groups, women and migrants, that are often marginalized and subject to various labor market barriers. Today, to discuss women and migrant work is the head of Migration and Urbanization Policy Research and Research Fellow, Bilesha Veeraratnam. Bilesha, welcome to Srilanka Life. Let's talk. Good to have you on the show. Just first, give me a brief insight into why Sri Lankan women become migrant workers.
You know, there are two types of women going for foreign employment from Sri Lanka. There will be high-skilled workers and low-skilled workers. So if we look at low-skilled workers, they mainly go because they have very limited employment opportunities within Sri Lanka. And also sometimes some of the occupations available in Sri Lanka, they're not all that willing to take it up in Sri Lanka, but they would be willing to take up a similar occupation overseas.
And that could be because of income?
Income, and they think that they can save more if they were overseas, away from the family and fully focused on the job. Whereas if they were here, they will have other social obligations and the savings would be limited than they would have done otherwise.
So how has the current pandemic and economic scenario impacted the lives of the female migrant worker?
If we look at low-skilled workers, some of the low-skilled workers who have been working within households were somewhat protected because they were within a household and the household activities were going on regardless of the pandemic, so their work was needed continuously. But for other workers like factory workers, perhaps when there were less orders for the production, then they were laid off and there were other adverse effects of that nature.
Do we as a nation value the contribution made by these migrant workers, the sacrifices, and how can we change the mindset?
I think the recent economic situation in terms of the foreign currency has shown the importance of the contribution of these migrant workers and their remittances. So when there were, if we were really valuing them, they would have been given a proper reward for the remittances they were sending into the country. Because it was not valued properly, only they felt that they were not getting what they should have got, so they reduced the amount of remittances coming through the formal channels and they were deviating to send through the informal channels to get a higher return. So we were not taking care of them properly.
So what should we do?
A couple of things. Maybe first you should have some incentives for migrant workers to send remittances regularly through the formal channels. These could be like a good rate of interest rate for their deposits, savings accounts and fixed deposits coming in as remittances, and also maybe offer them a good foreign exchange rate for the migrant worker remittances, and then also recognize the remittances that's coming in regularly for other collateral purposes, because these people might not have an income in the Sri Lankan market, but these remittances should be considered as a collateral for loan facilities and things like that.
In an ideal world, where should and could a female migrant worker be?
In the realistic world, what happens is a female migrant worker is paid less than a similarly qualified male migrant worker. That is not only for migrant workers, for all workers, I think that's similar. But what happens is, even though the female migrant workers are paid less, the proportion of their income that is sent back home as remittances is much higher than a male migrant worker. So in an ideal world, first, this wage gap between men and women, or male migrant workers or female migrant workers, has to be matched. And the other is that there has to be some recognition given to the females, because they take a greater responsibility of the family left behind than a male migrant worker.
Thank you, Bilesha. I just hope and wish that we can change our mindset and value the contribution made by our migrant workers to our national development, and more so, the sacrifices that our female migrant workers make to ensure we are able to live the life that we lead here in Sri Lanka. Join us every week, Subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Making all your new goals in life a reality is why our strength is your strength. With 12 billion rupees worth of customer benefits in 2020 and a life insurance fund worth over 100 billion rupees, our strength is your strength. You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Srilanka Life.